There are many things that make me happy, but the thing I wanted to share tonight is when I found and followed something that truly made me come alive. It's when I embarked on a year of self-discovery and healing, learning wilderness survival skills during a year in the bush. But the story starts back in the city. The once passionate environmental activist over the years had turned into a pale greenocrat. My life was a never-ending list of things to do, and I wanted desperately to just chill out and take a deep breath, but didn't know how or what I'd do. And then an email popped into my inbox, a year-long independent wilderness studies program on the north coast of New South Wales. My heart did a cartwheel. Imagine that, I thought. No 5 a.m. media releases, no buzzing phone, no emails. I signed up on the spot, along with 5 others. The first thing we learnt was the sacred order of survival: shelter, water, fire and food. This was my new job description. I rejoiced in the simplicity of whittling down life to its bare essentials. The rules were few. This was no Survivor reenactment. There was equal emphasis on observing the changing face of the bush and ourselves over 4 full seasons. It was a chance to take that long, deep breath that I'd been craving for years. Now, I was never the most practical lass, but I did love a good challenge, and a challenge I got with our first task, which was to build a shelter with only natural materials that would keep me dry in torrential rain and warm in sub-zero temperatures. These bones were made for building. I discovered that I loved the physicality of sawing, lashing, chopping, digging. Rather than typing and sitting on a computer, it was just inherently joyful. Even though marrying together the words waterproof and shelter with paper bark and natural string and grass were a lot more difficult than I imagined. Up close and personal with the elements, I relished the intimacy with the earth that this gave me. Fire became my best friend and also sometimes my enemy when I made a commitment to only use sticks and my bare hands to make fire the entire year, and matchsticks did not count. While I guess this rule would put a bit of a damper on my tea addiction, what I didn't realise is that it would give me blood blisters the size of 20-cent coins on both palms. But when I first made that first fire, I just cried with joy. It was such an amazing birth. And life was never dull when I was surrounded by my new feathered and furred and scaly friends. There was always something new to look at, some new set of tracks to follow. And the beauty of the bush gradually opened to me as I spent more time watching and listening, and turning the pages of the book of nature. Along with my knife, my binoculars became part of my new uniform. I sat for hours on this particular fallen tree, which was my sit spot, just watching and listening to the birds. And I tell you, the feeding frenzies and the family dramas and the territorial skirmishes were better than anything I'd seen on TV. I was riveted. Feeling at home in the bush also required me being comfortable. So I unleashed my cave woman creativity and delved into hide tanning and basketry and pottery and whittling and making the latest in primitive IKEA cookware and furniture. And I really relished the repetition that these earth skills kind of necessitated. It was like I'd stepped into that Zen koan of, chop wood, carry water, when path and practice are one. Life is meditation, and meditation is life. I spent a lot of time alone, both wandering the land without time or destination, and also alone in my shelter at night by the fire. And it became just as much a process of exploring and traversing the internal wilds as well as the external wilds of my landscape. Solitude was not always an easy companion. The to-do lists snuck into my journal, and I found that the striving and the busyness was still there. Over time, I realised that rather than become a bush ninja, my true task of the year was to break my addiction to doing and learn how to just be. Equally as important as solo time was time with my tribe. There is really nothing more that gives me joy than an adventure with others. Life in the open air shared with others on adventures and discoveries is really the recipe for me for happiness. As well as giving me a sense of kind of self-sufficiency and independence, bush skills were just plain fun. It was like being given permission to be a kid again, making cubbies, lighting fires. It was just this sense of playfulness and curiosity that you could just follow, the next set of tracks or follow any kind of whim that took your fancy. There were many times that year when the sight of the moon rising through the trees or seeing the platypus in the creek just stung me with its beauty. I felt connected to something greater, to a spirit that moves through all things. Nature taught me more than I could ever find in books. And more I realised that wildness is less a place and more of a sense of being, a way of being. It's a fluidity and a living life in the flow, which I continue to aspire. Leaving the bush, I was so inspired that I started writing out all my stories, and then these words joined into a river, which eventually became a book. And my year without matches hit the bookshops today. So happy birthday, book. Thank you.